All right, we got some fascinating stuff to dive into today from this deathpart9.pdf. It's not your typical take on, death and dying.
Yeah, it's not about being afraid of death.
Right, exactly.
It's more like, how do we understand it?
Yeah, and even more than that, how can we support someone going through it?
Absolutely.
And it looks at it from all these different angles.
Yeah.
Scientific, cultural.
What's so interesting is how it brings in the spiritual side, too.
Right.
But then it also gives you, practical advice.
Yeah, not just like a vague, be spiritual.
No, it actually gets down to the nitty-gritty,
It does. It even talks about how the direction someone's facing can affect how they transition.
And how certain sounds can create a peaceful atmosphere.
It's wild.
Yeah.
And it really pushes back against this idea that death is just like, snap, it's over.
It's a process.
Yeah, it's a process. And we can understand it.
And even influence it in a positive way.
Okay, I'm hooked. So the source talks about this analogy of a river becoming a cloud. Can you unpack that a little?
Okay, so picture a river, right? Flowing towards the ocean. Purpose, direction. That's our life in a body.
Okay, I'm with you.
Now, when we die, it's like that river evaporates, becomes a cloud. Suddenly, no clear path, just drifting with the wind.
At the mercy of the elements.
Exactly. That's the disembodied state. We lose that grounded sense of ourselves.
So are we just floating around aimlessly?
Well, not exactly. We're driven by our karmic tendencies.
Which are?
Basically, all the habits and patterns we've built up over our lifetime.
So all our baggage comes with us.
You could say that.
So then, how does someone's emotional and mental state in those final moments play into this cloud analogy?
Think about it. If the final moments are filled with fear or anger, that energy, it carries over.
Oh, wow.
The source emphasizes that when we die, we lose our discriminatory mind.
Meaning?
The ability to make choices, control our reactions.
Oh, we can't talk ourselves down from a ledge anymore.
Right, so emotions, thoughts, they're amplified, no filter, and that momentum, it flows into the afterlife.
That makes a lot of sense. So then, if our final emotions are so strong, how do we help someone cultivate peace in those last moments?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. The source talks about heaven and hell.
Okay.
But not as literal places.
More like states of being.
Exactly, experiential states. And they're directly influenced by our final moments.
So if someone's clinging to anger or regret,
those emotions, they intensify.
but if they're feeling peace, acceptable.
Even love, it leads to a more positive experience.
So it's not just about comfort in those final moments. It's about their well-being as they transition to this next phase.
Absolutely. The source even suggests that helping someone die well can impact their future lives. It could even lead to liberation.
Liberation from?
The cycle of death and rebirth.
Wow. Okay, so this is getting pretty deep.
Yeah, but it makes you think, right?
It does.
Okay.
So how does the source support this idea?
Well, it compares it to how much we struggle in life to overcome negative emotions, bad habits.
It's like those are harder to break when we're alive and kicking it.
Right, so helping someone shed those burdens at death.
It gives them a head start.
Exactly, a fresh start on their next journey, like wiping the slate clean.
Makes you think about how differently death is viewed across cultures. The source specifically mentions Indian culture. What's their take?
They really emphasize dying peacefully. Not just physical comfort, but mentally and spiritually.
Creating the right environment for a smooth transition.
Yeah, and this idea extends even to enemies.
Enemies, seriously.
Yeah, the source gives an example from the Kurukshetra War, this warrior, Bhima.
Really? I've heard of them.
He was actually criticized for desecrating his opponent's body, even though that opponent had done some terrible things.
So even in battle, there's this understanding that death deserves respect.
Regardless of how someone lived?
It's like we're acknowledging the human element, even in an enemy.
Exactly. And the source suggests this isn't just an Indian thing, it's a universal human instinct.
I can see that.
We get disturbed when the dead aren't treated with respect. It's like we instinctively recognize the vulnerability of that disembodied being.
Even though the physical body's gone, something remains.
And it deserves our compassion. The source actually says that helping someone die well, it can be more impactful than all our efforts in life to overcome negativity.
That's a powerful statement. So we're not just easing their passing, we're potentially affecting their entire afterlife.
That's the idea. And it raises all sorts of questions about how we approach death.
Individually and as a society, there's a lot to unpack there.
Oh, yeah.
But before we go further, I think we need to talk about something that comes up a lot. Mercy killing.
It's a tough one. Especially now with all the advancements in medicine, it's more relevant than ever.
Does the source offer any perspective on it?
It does. It argues against mercy killing, and it uses this analogy of a mother suffering during childbirth.
That's an interesting comparison. How do those connect?
Well, the source says childbirth is painful, right? But we don't kill the mother or the child to stop the suffering. We recognize it's a natural process.
And we support her through it.
Exactly. So the argument is that death, like childbirth, shouldn't be interfered with.
Even if they're suffering.
Right, and the source does acknowledge the whole issue of modern medicine and how it can lead to those prolonged vegetative states.
Which brings up the question of pulling the plug.
Right, and all the ethical dilemmas surrounding end-of-life decisions.
That's a reality so many people are facing these days. To prolong life artificially or to let nature take its course. Does the source give any guidance on that?
It actually differentiates between two types of vegetative states.
Yeah.
One where the mind is still active, but the body is inert.
Any other?
The body's functioning, but the mind is inactive. For that second one, it suggests waiting.
Waiting for what?
5 cycles of 21 days before making a decision.
So giving it time to see if there's any change.
Yeah, to let the situation unfold. It emphasizes observing the person's pranamaya kosha,
They're what?
their energy body, to see if there's any sign of life force potential for recovery.
So even if the physical body seems to be working, if that inner energy is fading.
It could be a sign that death is inevitable.
It cautions against making snap judgments based on external signs.
Right. And the source also tells this funny story about this guy, Shankaran Pillai.
Oh, I love these stories.
So he's watching a show about hospices, and he tells his wife, if I ever become vegetative, just pull the plug.
Oh.
His wife totally misunderstands and unplugs the TV.
Oh man, classic. It's a good reminder that communication is crucial, especially when we're talking about death.
Oh, absolutely. We need to be clear about our wishes.
And have these conversations with our loved ones. It's not easy, but it's so important.
For sure.
So we've covered a lot.
We have.
The importance of dying peacefully, different cultural views, even the complexity of mercy killing.
There's more to come, too.
I know, I can't wait.
We haven't even gotten to the practical advice on creating a peaceful atmosphere.
Oh, right. And that north-south alignment thing, we got to get into that.
It's fascinating stuff, but I think we should let our listeners process all this for now.
Yeah, it's a lot to digest.
We'll be back with part 2 and dive into all that practical stuff.
Can't wait. All right, see you then. Welcome back. I'm eager to get into some of this practical advice we touched on last time. The source mentions creating a peaceful atmosphere for someone who's dying at home.
It really gets into the details, like it talks about having a clean white room with soft blue lighting and no distractions, no pictures, personal belongings, that kind of thing.
So just keeping it super simple.
The idea is to create a calming space that helps with a peaceful transition.
Stripping away all that external stuff to help someone turn inward during this big life change.
That's the idea.
Makes sense. What about sound? What does it say about sound?
Oh, sound is really important. It suggests playing chants or mantras.
The source talks about internalizing a mantra, right? It even mentions Swami Ramdas. His body was vibrating with the sound Rama, 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 even in his sleep.
It's amazing, right?
It really is.
It shows how sound can permeate our very being.
It's like it becomes a part of you.
And the source suggests that this internalization can be a huge support during the dying process.
Like an anchor in unfamiliar waters.
Exactly. If someone's practiced a mantra or chant throughout their life,
Hearing that sound as they're transitioning.
it could bring a sense of peace and familiarity.
What about those Vairagya chants the source mentioned? What are those all about?
Those are specifically designed to support the dying process.
How so?
They encourage detachment from the physical body and ease the transition
It's like helping someone let go of their attachment to this world.
and embrace what lies beyond.
Okay, so we've got the white room, soft lighting, chants.
Yeah.
But what if someone's dying in a hospital, like an ICU, where you can't really control the environment?
The source talks about that. It suggests creating a similar atmosphere at home,
How do you mean?
using the person's clothing, a picture of them.
To create a connection.
Yeah. It might not be as powerful as being there in person,
Right.
but it can still be beneficial.
Intention is powerful.
It is. It's like you're sending positive energy their way, even from a distance.
The source also talks about north to south alignment of the body.
Yes.
Why is that important when someone's dying?
It has to do with the Earth's magnetic field.
Okay.
The North Pole has this strong pull, and sleeping with your head to the north
Can disrupt sleep,
affect your health even.
like you're being magnetized.
Yeah, and it throws off your energy flow. But here's the thing.
Yeah?
The source says this all changes when someone's dying.
Really?
In those final moments, aligning the body with the head to the north, it actually helps the life force disentangle from the physical body.
So what's bad for us in life becomes helpful in death.
It is a bit of a paradox, isn't it?
It is. It shows how everything shifts as we move from one state of being to another. It makes you realize how little we know about life and death.
We're just scratching the surface.
But this source is giving us some clues.
It is.
To approach death with more awareness, compassion.
Absolutely. So we've covered creating a peaceful environment, the power of sound, this whole north-south thing.
What else is there?
Well, the source reminds us that death isn't instantaneous.
It's a process.
Right. Even after someone is medically dead, there's still a period of withdrawal.
As the life force leaves the body.
Exactly. And it can continue even after cremation.
Wow.
That's why it emphasizes those rituals, support for up to 14 days after death.
It's about easing that transition.
Yes. And it's interesting because in our modern world, we tend to rush through grief.
Get back to normal as quickly as possible.
Right. But this source is suggesting we honor the natural time frame, the rhythm of death.
We're dealing with something much greater than just the physical body.
There's a whole spiritual dimension, an energetic reality.
And we need to respect that.
Absolutely. It's like we need to shift our perspective.
From death being an ending,
to seeing it as a transformation.
a passage into something new.
Yes, and that requires a different kind of awareness, a different kind of sensitivity.
It does. It really does. We've covered so much about supporting someone through, the dying process. But this idea that death isn't just this one-time event, it's a process that really sticks with me.
Yeah, there's definitely more to explore there. Remember how the source talked about even after cremation, someone might not be existentially dead?
Yeah.
That gets to the heart of understanding these subtle dimensions of life and death.
So it's not just about the body shutting down.
Right.
There's this whole energetic transition happening.
Think about that river evaporating into a cloud.
Yeah.
That transition, it doesn't happen instantly.
It takes time.
It's a gradual process.
The water changing, becoming something new.
And death is similar.
So even though the physical body is gone, that person's essence, their consciousness, it's still in transition.
That's the idea.
And that's where those rituals come in. The support for up to 14 days after death.
It's recognizing that the journey doesn't end with the last breath.
Or even with cremation.
There's still a process of disentanglement.
Movement toward the next phase.
Yeah, it's like we're holding space for them, supporting them energetically.
As they finish that transition.
And the source suggests that doing this can really affect how smoothly someone moves on.
It makes you think, in our modern world, we try to rush through grief.
Get back to normal.
But this source is saying, hey, there's a natural time frame
A rhythm to death.
that we should honor.
Right, we're dealing with something way bigger than just the physical body.
There's this spiritual dimension, an energetic reality.
And we have to respect that.
It's like we need to shift how we see death
From an ending
to a transformation, a passage.
into something new. And that takes a different kind of awareness, a different sensitivity.
It does. And it brings us back to what this whole deep dive has been about.
Approaching death with more understanding.
More compassion, more awareness.
Both our own death and the death of others.
It's not about denying death or running from it.
It's about embracing it.
As part of life,
And maybe by doing that,
we can make that transition easier.
for the dying person and for those they leave behind.
This gives me a lot to think about.
Me too.
And I'm sure our listeners are feeling the same. It's a lot to take in. If you're feeling overwhelmed, that's okay.
It's natural.
We encourage you to revisit the source material, deathpart9.pdf,
Take your time with it.
and think about how all this applies to your own life, your own understanding of death.
And how you approach supporting those who are nearing the end of their journey.
Because death is something we all share.
It's part of being human.
Maybe by facing it with more awareness, we can really live more fully in this moment.
Like that saying, by contemplating death, we learn how to live.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep.